From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Friday, June 27, 2025. Schools will get help to involve police when students share explicit deepfake images of one another. The eSafety Commissioner, Julie Inman-Grant, says students are using AI to undress their peers. Spain has broken with NATO allies in refusing to lift defence spending to 5% of GDP. Donald Trump says the decision by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is terrible and has vowed to hit Spain with fresh tariffs in retaliation. You can read the latest world news right now at theaustralian.com.au. A storm has blown up over a Melbourne suburban council sacking a street sweeper who objected to an acknowledgement of country at a toolbox meeting. The council accused Sean Turner of serious misconduct, but the Fair Work Commission says he was unfairly dismissed. Today, what are you allowed to say or think at work these days? From early morning in the quiet northern suburbs of Melbourne, council staff who keep our streets clean gather for regular meetings to discuss the day's order of business: rubbish, potholes, gutters, drains. But when a recent meeting commenced with an acknowledgement of country, the local traditional owners of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, one of the blokes who drives a street sweeping truck, Sean Turner, spoke up.
He said, "Are you joking? Why we're doing this?" And he said, if we need to be thanking anyone, it's the people who have worn the uniform and fought for our country to keep us free.
That's Ewan Hannon. He's the workplace editor at The Australian, and he's broken this story about Turner, who was sacked for what he said at that meeting.
The issue was taken up the chain to the council, and there was a complaint made about Mr Turner's behaviour. There was an investigation against Mr Turner in relation to alleged breaches of the council's code of conduct and its equal opportunity policy. And during that investigation, he told the two female managers who were investigating the claim that this is getting out of hand in relation to the acknowledgement of country. People are losing it. It's now being done at the opening of a postage stamp. I don't object to the acknowledgement of country being done, but I'd prefer to have the option to be able to walk out when it's being done.
Turner's employer, the Labor and Greens heavy Darebin City Council, accused him of serious misconduct. He was summoned to a meeting with managers where he was offered the opportunity to bring a support person. Turner, who says he has Aboriginal friends and relatives, brought an Indigenous supporter.
It actually trained some Aboriginal workers on the job. So he said this has nothing to do with any alleged racism. This is just about his freedom of speech. And during the meeting, he was quite robust in the way he was answering questions. There was a funny exchange in the commission proceedings where he was talking about his character and he said, people say I'm frank, and one of the reasons I'm quite forthright is that I'm half deaf. And so people interpret that a certain way. But he said the two investigators believed that he was being quite offensive in his comments. And after the meeting, they independently rang the Indigenous support person to apologise on Mr Turner's behalf, even though the Indigenous support person had taken no offence whatsoever. So that would sort of be an illustration of the political sensitivities here that are being undertaken by the council.
So there were differing accounts of exactly how Mr Turner expressed himself at that first toolbox meeting. The council said that he had said that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people do not deserve an acknowledgement at the start of meetings. He denied saying that, didn't he?
That's right. So in the charges that were put against him for the breaches of the Code of Conduct, it was alleged that he said the acknowledgement was not necessary and that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people did not deserve an acknowledgement at the start of meetings, point blank. It also cited some derogatory comments he made about another colleague. But the Commission found, and Mr Turner insisted, that he didn't make those comments at all. They weren't the sweeping comments. They weren't disrespectful, sarcastic or aggressive. And essentially what he said was, if anyone was to be acknowledged or thanked at a meeting, it should be the servicemen and women who had fought for this country. They talked about the fact that he said that I don't think it should be held at every meeting. I want the courtesy of being able to walk out of those meetings. So I don't object to you doing it, I just don't want to be there.
The Fair Work Commission found Turner had been wrongfully dismissed and rejected the council's claim that he'd been disrespectful or aggressive. Mr Turner wants his job back. How did that go?
Mr Turner believes he should be able to go back to his job. If that can't be worked through in subsequent commission proceedings, then he'll be awarded a certain amount of compensation, which sort of looks at how much money he's lost since he's lost his job, and also in terms of the conduct of the employer.
He was represented at the hearing by his union. Which union is that, Ewan?
That's the Australian Services Union. So I think generally the union movement would be supportive of acknowledgement of country, welcome to country ceremonies. I think where the issue is here is where they also believe, and I think the right of members to disagree with that. So where it gets into a situation where an employer takes adverse action against a worker, sacks them, they're going to be coming in there first to represent their members rather than sort of prioritising any sort of political belief, I think.
So we've seen another high-profile case in recent days where a union, the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, was supporting a worker who said that she'd been sacked for having an opinion. That's Antoinette Lattouf, who was a casual presenter at the ABC. She lost some shifts after posting about the war in Gaza. And the federal court has found that she was unlawfully terminated for holding a political opinion. In this matter, the matter of Sean Turner, the Fair Work Commission said that expressing his opinion about acknowledgement of country did not constitute a valid reason for dismissal. So, Ewan, how do we marry those two things up? And what do you think is the situation in a workplace now? How free are Australian workers to express a political opinion or to hold one?
Well, I think in the case of Sean Turner, this was a case of a botched, unfair dismissal, where I spoke to some prominent legal lawyers this morning who said this is a case study in how not to handle a dismissal. They say they don't think it sets a precedent in relation to acknowledgement of country and the right to express political opinion or free speech. It's more about the circumstances of the particular case. And in this case, every step along the way, the employer really hasn't handled it properly. So that's why the Fair Work Commission was able to sort of lay out all the reasons why he had been treated unfairly.
That's similar to the federal court finding about Antoinette Lattouf, isn't it, where the ABC was found not to have lived up to its own procedures of giving her a fair chance to defend herself.
Yeah, that's right. So I think both these cases go to the issue of people expressing opinions and how it intertwines with companies' brand reputation, or, in the ABC's case, a brand reputation, and how that intertwines with companies' social media policies and what can be done in the age of social media when you express an opinion, and companies trying to enforce sort of tough social media guidelines on people, and where that encroaches in people's public opinions and right to freedom of expression, and where the line is drawn between the employer's rights and the employee's rights to express an opinion.
Coming up, so what do Australians really think about acknowledgements of country? Ewan, you talk to everybody in the industrial sector, from unions to bosses to the government to the opposition. There was a bit of an attempt at the last federal election by Peter Dutton to bring welcome to country, or people perceived as being a bit over welcomes to country. He tried to make that an issue at the election. That didn't work. What's your sense from talking to people across workplaces of how hot this is as an issue?
Oh, look, it's certainly a big talking point across media. You listen to Talkback Radio, you certainly heard it talked about a lot. You can see from the reaction to our readers to this story today that it's a big discussion point. I think there needs to be a balance struck about when you do acknowledgement of country. I think in this case, this worker doesn't object to acknowledgement of country per se, but it's about the question of whether it goes too far, whether it's necessary all the time. So in the case that, with this council, for example, their policy is to have it with every meeting. And I've had people contact me today saying we have, 7-8 meetings a day where we have to do acknowledgement of country, and they think that probably goes too far. So I think you've got to strike the balance right, be respectful to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, but on the same time, don't overdo it.
Yeah, and do you think we are kind of landing at some sensible place? Are there organisations that are reducing it to be just at big meetings where it's the whole workforce, or do you see it kind of everywhere?
I think it's a pretty contested space. I think there are some organisations who probably do overdo it, and there are some who go the other way. So I think there should be an ability for employees and employees probably to have a discussion about it, to work out a sensible policy. I mean, Mr Turner's argument was that it should be done at, sizeable, significant events, including when there are international visitors here. You see, like in Melbourne, for example, there was a lot of discussion about the AFL and the AFL being too politically woke and politically correct and having acknowledgement of countries or welcome to country. And there was a bit of a backlash there by some sections of the community. But I've been at football games when there's been acknowledgement of country, and the whole crowd, we're talking about 80,000 people, will stand up and applaud in support of those people. So I think there's a contested position amongst the community there.
Would it be fair to say that acknowledgements don't belong at toolbox meetings of street sweepers at suburban city councils?
I think what they did in this case is that they didn't give anyone a forewarning or discussion about it. So the fact that they didn't follow their process, and they seem to be very big on everyone following a process, whether it be equal opportunity or these policies they have, the fact that they didn't do that and just surprised the workers, and then it led to this snowballing effect, would suggest that they could have another review of their own policies.
Ewan Hannon is The Australian's workplace editor. He breaks all the big yarns and he talks to absolutely everyone. You can follow his reporting by joining our subscribers at theaustralian.com.au.